Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. I'm a guy called Joe, and this is Bootstrapping Tools Community Support, where we help scrappy bootstrappers just like yourself overcome some of the hurdles that they're facing with the applications or business rules or whatever that they're doing on their own. Now, before we dive into today's video, make sure to check out our YouTube channel. We got lots of videos on different types of applications out there, and as well as different ways to help make your jobs more efficient and while your bosses are just overcome and automate some of your operations. If you don't see an application that you're looking for, like Retool or Google Sheets, Google Apps Scripts, or any of that sort, feel free to send an email over to feedback@bootstrapping.tools, and we'll be happy to take a look at the application you're using and then create a video just for you to help you overcome whatever hurdles you're facing. Now, in today's video, we're going to be helping someone who had a question about the query formula in Google Sheets and how that's different from using curly brackets. Now, in their example, they're really just talking about, using a very simple query formula and then using a pretty simple curly brackets. So the curly brackets, in a sense, is just to create an array out of the data sets that you pass through it. So what they're doing right now, they're only passing through one column in sheet one. It's really basic. It's not really doing much out of the curly brackets. To utilize the full power of it, you want to actually have multiple data sets, which would be separated out by a semicolon or the dot comma symbol, and you can do like sheet 1, A1 through A semicolon, and then sheet 2, and then B to whatever, and you can do that as many times as you want in order to stitch data together one on top of the other. And then for the query formula, what makes that really powerful is when you add in a select statement on there. So you can select A to Z, and then within your select statement, you can pick out certain columns that you want, as well as pass through specific criteria or conditions to filter out that data. But I can talk about this all day. It's going to be better if we just show it to you. So let's head on over to Google Sheets. So on the screen here, we have a sample data set for COVID vaccinations, pretty recent. I think it's got data up to yesterday or something like that. But it's a pretty big data set. We have A through L in columns, and then we probably have like something like 30,000 rows or something like that. So this is going to be a great data set for us to use both of these different methods. So the first method I want to show you is the query formula. It's a pretty special formula. I use it all the time, especially when I'm importing data from different spreadsheets as well as different tabs, and I just need to combine and then filter those out. So first thing we're going to do is, let me show you this formula. You select the query. So it's the Google documentation is pretty simple. You got the query formula, and then it has the data source, and then the query that you're going to write in, which is just a simple select statement. If you use SQL before, you'll probably find this pretty familiar. It's a little bit different. You don't really have to do like a from clause in there. It's really just select clause and then a where clause, and there's a bunch of other arguments that you can pass through. And then the last one there is headers, which is just how many headers does it have. So if for whatever reason your spreadsheet, really the data set starts at row 5, you're going to tell it that you have 4 column headers. That way it starts 4 columns down instead of starting at 1. So what we're going to do here is, because our data is in sheet 1, we're going to do sheet 1 A through L, because we have all the way up to L, and then we're going to do select star and where A is not no, and then we're going to do 1 because we only have 1 header row there. So real quick, before we hit enter here and show you what it looks like, I just want to explain. So select star means that we're going to select all the columns that are available within the data set we just passed. So everything within A through L, every single column we're going to pass through. And then I put in where A is not null, so that the system knows to filter out anything where it's an empty space. And typically column A is your primary identifier in some cases, or it's usually always filled, so you can always use where A is not null. If you have another primary identifier that's in another column, you want to use that one. Essentially, instead of giving us, since our data sheet had like 38,000 rows or 33,000 rows, so something around there, it's only going to pull in the exact number of rows that it needs instead of going to like 40,000 or 50,000 or something like that. So we're going to hit enter there. I'm going to zoom out. and I'm going to show you exactly what things look like. So, okay, so data is loading, and I need to zoom out. It's not letting me zoom out. There we go. Okay. So we now have all our entire data set. If we go all the way down to the bottom, we'll see that there's 33,805 exactly. And then now let's start diving into the real power of the query statement over here. So we can say we don't care. Let me actually show you this here. Let's say we don't care about the ISO code. So we don't care about column B. And then since F and G seem to not really be filled out too much, we can leave that out. And then fully vaccinated K also seems like it's not super filled out, so we can leave that out too. So let's say we're going to take select A, we're going to select C, select D, E, H, I, J, and L. So that means that we're going to remove column K and we're going to remove column B as well as F and G. So once we hit enter here, that's going to just filter out the columns that we don't care about. And then make everything a little shorter here. Perfect, everything moves over and adjusts itself over to the left. And if we wanted to say, filter anything out where daily vaccinations per million, is less than 100, we can also do that. So we're gonna add in a where clause here. So we're gonna say and L, because L is the last column in that data set, is greater than 100, meaning filter out anything where it's less than 100. When we do that, we should see all of these rows actually disappear, and those should get replaced by things where there's at least 100, like so. Now with the query formula, if you use SQL before, you can also filter by dates. The way that you would filter for a date using this select statement, actually with a special syntax. So that's column C. So we're going to say C is greater than date. And then we're going to close this out. Well, single quote first, because we need to put the date value in single quotes. We're going to close that quotation out, and then we're going to add in something in between here. And that something is going to be text, which is going to help us format. And then we're going to say, let's say today's date. And we're going to format this in year, month. Oh, we actually need double quotations there. Year, month, day. All right. And we're not going to do just today. We're going to say let's say the last week, so last 7 days. And then at the end over here, we're going to add in our single quote so that we can close off the date value that we're passing through in our criteria. When we hit enter, we're going to expect that everything gets filtered out, and we should only see things within the last week. And it looks like I hit a slight error here. What does the error tell me? Unable to parse. It probably just means that I need to add in a little something so that it can, oh, here we go. Just a little something over here. I forgot the quotation mark at the end there. So, okay, so that looks better. I'm gonna hit enter, and then this should run the query. Perfect. So today's date is the 17th, and the earliest date that we see here is the 11th. Perfect, exactly what we want to do. You can also do a bunch of other things as well. Let's say if this is daily vaccinations per million, right? You can make a calculation for that, so you can actually place at the end over here. Let's say if it's per million, then it's probably divided by a million, so we can multiply that by a million again. So we can say L times 1, 2, 3. So I think that's a million, right? Yeah. So L times 1 million, and then now that's going to be, it's going to show us the value where we've multiplied it by a million. And then that header doesn't really look that great, so you can also do cool things like adding in labels for it. So you can say label L, and then we'll pass through, we'll just say vax raw. I think that's fine, sure. And then that should rename our, oh, sorry, I did that one. I meant to do, I think that's the way you would do it if you were to rename it. Yeah, there we go. So now we can rename it to Vax Raw so that it has prettier. As you saw before, it accidentally renamed the H column, which is L. You could do that if you wanted to. So here, let's actually do that for you right now. Let's say we're going to rename L to Vax per million, or actually let's just say Vax per mil. We hit enter there, and then it's going to rename it. And that's basically the power that you can get out of the query formula here. You can do a lot of different things. You can also create spacing if you wanted to. You can just like throw in random spaces here and there to make your data set look a little prettier. But that's essentially it. I would say try it out, use it with other things. You can imagine your data source can be anything. It doesn't have to be a sheet that's within the spreadsheet you're working with. You can use the import range function. You can actually use the array, the curly brackets within here if you're combining a bunch of data sets. But about that array, let's show you how that looks actually. So let's go over to column K over here, and I'm going to show you the curly bracket. If you use the curly bracket, what's going to happen is, and we'll actually copy what the poster had talked about before. So sheet 1A, 1-A, it just creates an array out of that data set and then just populates it right where your formula is. So this is going to give us all the locations. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, what makes it powerful is when you start to combine different ranges together. So instead of saying A1 through all of A, let's say it's just A through A5. And then we do the semicolon, which is the dot comma, and then we do sheet 1 A, not A, let's do B, B1 through B5. And this is going to take the first 5 values from from column A, and then the first 5 from column B, and then it's going to stack them on top of each other like so. We have location, and then we have ISO code. Now this data set doesn't look really pretty right now because who would do that? But it becomes really handy if you have your team who's filling in their own spreadsheets. Everybody's working off of their own spreadsheet, and you need to combine that data so that you have an aggregate value. So let's actually do that here. Let's take all of Zimbabwe, everything that we have down below over here. Let's cut that out. I'm going to add in a brand new sheet. I'm going to paste their data set here. And then let's do the same thing for Zambia. Or just take that data and then we'll shove it into another sheet. Just want to show you exactly how powerful the array, those curly brackets can be if you need to use it. Let's paste that in here. So now we have 2 sheets. So if you have 5 different members on a team, you can do it for each and every single sheet. Let's go back to the demo here. Let's take our headers back and then delete this out, and we'll paste our headers in here. Actually, that's not what I wanted. I want to paste the headers in here, so we're going to paste values. Okay. Now that we have our headers, now we're going to do the curly bracket, and then we're going to do sheet 6 exclamation mark A through L, right? And then in between there, we're going to put sheet 7 A through L, and this is going to stack the data one on top of another. Now, one of the things that I don't personally like about this way is that it will take everything in there, which includes all this white space because there are 1,000 empty cells in there. So if we go all the way down, you'll see that Zambia is down here. It's just that it also took in all those empty columns in that sheet because that's what we're just telling it to do. We're telling it to grab everything through A through L, the entire column, all the rows. So the way you would actually fix that is by adding in a filter statement. So let's copy this. We're going to use it in a bit. Let's do filter, and then you have that range, and then we're going to do the range where sheet 6 A to A and sheet 7 A to A, that combined array, because remember for a formula for filter you have to make sure that you're using the same range as the criteria as you are for the range you want to display. So we're going to do that does not equal to blank, and then that's going to remove all that white space for us. So now that we have that, we see that Zambia and Zimbabwe are stacked right on top of one another. And there are a couple of different things that you can also do to this if you want to. Instead of using a filter, you can actually use the query formula. So again, show you here. So instead of using filter, let's use query, and then we're going to use the same data set that we had before, and then we'll remove this part and then put it in a select statement. We can say select. So this is actually going to be column 1 because you have a combined array now. It's not going to know what A is versus B, so you have to actually do column 1. So let's say column 1 and column 2. Let's just keep it simple. We'll just do the country and then the date. Actually, the date's going to be column 3. Where column 1 is not no, and then we're going to say no header. You can do that. So it's only going to display Zimbabwe and the date, and then Zambia and its date. This is a very powerful way. This is how I would personally do it if I was combining a bunch of data together. So let's say in theory you had your team was working off of the same Google Sheet. They were entering, I don't know, sales data, let's say. And then for you wanted to create a report on a monthly basis that would tell you how the sales were doing. You basically just do it like this, right? You'd say query, and then each and every single one of those sheets, the entire range. And then in your select statement, you just say select all where that date is less than, I don't know, a month, so that you can get the monthly report. You can create a chart off of that so that you can present it over to your superiors or just yourself if you're the top dog or whatever. But super powerful, lots of different ways to do it. So we went over the query formula as well as the filter formula very briefly, and then the curly brackets. So the curly brackets just sets up an array. Powerful and quick to use, but the real power if you're filtering and slicing out data and trying to analyze it comes from being able to filter the data if you're doing something like a very basic filtering, or the query formula, which will give you a lot more flexibility and a lot more power in how you slice and dice that data around, because you can also create calculations off of that, like we see here where the VAX raw and then the VAX per million versus those. But that's it for today. If you do have any questions or you run into any issues, feel free to drop a comment in the section below. This has been community support. We're always here to help, so don't feel shy or anything like that. Just put it in the comment. We're happy to create new videos. People have already asked before, and we've made videos specifically just for them. And of course, if you liked the video, please make sure to hit that like button. It's the best way to support the channel so that other bootstrappers just like yourself can find this video, learn from it, and also it helps make sure that our videos rank in the YouTube search results. We have lots of other videos coming out, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and also the bell so that you get notified of our next video whenever we release it. But otherwise, I'm a guy called Joe. This is Bootstrapping Tools Community Support. It's been a pleasure, and we're out.